when I bought both, well, when I didn't buy George's work initially, but I was part of the editorial team who was pushing to buy A Song of Ice and Fire when it first came in as a trilogy. And we were actually it was our fiction department Christmas lunch, in fact, when the agent sent it through to us. Much wine was taken. And we were all going, no, we have to have this book, just offer more. We don't care, however much it takes. Just buy it. It was very sneaky though, because the chunk that we got ended with Bran falling off the tower. How could we not want to read on after that? But originally, that was conceived of as a trilogy. That was how we saw it. So, did you have any concept of just how vast the story arc was going to be when you set out, like Magellan going around the world?
I didn't. No, I thought it could be a trilogy. It was initially proposed to be a Game of Thrones, A Dance with Dragons, and Winds of Winter with 3 initial titles. There was a period there where I thought I'd never get to A Dance with Dragons, because the second book became the third book, and then it became the fourth book, and then it became the fifth book. But I finally did get it out as the fifth book. And even then, I didn't get everything into it that I had originally thought when it was going to be a trilogy. The tale grew in the telling. Fortunately, I had Tolkien to come up with that wonderful phrase. It's all very well to discuss some of these things in outline, but then when you actually sit down and write them, other thoughts occur to you, secondary characters come in, you think of an interesting subplot, and suddenly the stew is much richer, but it also takes more bowls to fill it up.
Nice
ultimately, I don't think it matters, artistically at least. It obviously matters to my publishers, I guess, and to my fans, but it doesn't matter how many books it is because it's one story.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings was not a trilogy in any classic literary sense. Tolkien didn't think he was writing a trilogy. He divided it into books, but he divided it into 6 books, if you note, not 3. He thought he was writing one book, but it was so much longer than the other books of the 1950s that his publisher, Allen and Unwin, I believe, decided that they would make it a trilogy. And therefore, they set the template for fantasy trilogies for the next 30, 40 years.
And you know why they split it into a trilogy? Because
No.
post-war paper prices were so high, they couldn't afford to print it as a 1,500-page volume.
Well,
And here we are. Now, fantasy trilogies rule. And
if only they'd had e-books.
Don't go there. I take this question over here.
It was touched on earlier about the underdogs in both your books, and I just wanted to know, was that an intentional thing that you wanted the underdog to succeed? We see you have Tyrion, who hadn't had the best start in life, and you have Fitz, but it's just something I noticed, especially with Arya as well, that they didn't have the best start, and they weren't probably the ones that you thought would ever get anywhere really, but as the books progressed, I felt that they were the ones that seemed to be getting stronger out of everyone. That's just my opinion of it.
I think that all of us feel like we're underdogs. So when you write a character who starts out with a tough time and has a harder start, not only does it let you develop their skills in interesting ways with a dancing master or a peculiar mentor who's going to teach you to be an assassin, but I think you win the sympathy of everybody everybody here has felt at one time or another that everybody else in the world had a better shot at things than they did. So when you engage that, you engage the reader, and I think you create a character that brings the reader more fully into the story.
Yeah, I have always had a soft spot for the outsider, the underdog, as you say, cripples, bastards, and broken things, as the title of one of the episodes goes. The angst or that they have in life is makes for more conflict, makes for more drama. and there's something very attractive about that. I mean, my Game of Thrones is full of outsiders of all types who are all facing, none of them fit comfortably into the society in which they've been born, and they're all struggling to find a place for themselves in which they're valued and loved and respected, despite what their society considers their deficiencies. And out of that comes, I think, good stories. Good stories.